What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Bruce Springsteen as we continue through his 1973 debut album Greetings from Asbury Park, NJ, or New Jersey. Thank you again to Michaela, not only for his album catalog, but also for the special assortment of tunes that kicked off this deep dive. And that appetizer is relevant because we're now going to jump over Lost in the Flood, because I reacted to it as part of that special playlist at the beginning of this deep dive. And the other tune, or the next tune on the other side of Lost in the Flood, is The Angel. Now, in the last few years, I've reacted to a number of tracks featuring that word and concept in the title, so I'll probably repeat some of what I've said there in this introduction. But yeah, angel is most explicitly or strictly a metaphysical or religious or spiritual term to relate to something or someone who is divine, or at the very least celestial and heavenly, and thus there's a sense of moral quality but also of a transcendent nature. Now, it is obviously used more colloquially just to refer to anyone who is either very, very good and or beautiful, maybe pure and innocent. So I feel like any of those qualities could be likely here, and indeed I am expecting this to be more down to earth, a human angel. Nevertheless, there might be a reference to a spiritual or metaphysical angel as a comparative point. Nevertheless, I will try to follow what I can. Let's hear it. This is Bruce Springsteen. The song is The Angel, and it's from his 1973 debut album, Greetings from Asbury Park, NJ.
The angel rides with hunchback children, poison oozing from his engine, wielding love as a lethal weapon, on his way to capped heaven. Baseball cards poked in his spokes, his boots in oil he's patiently soaked. The roadside attendant nervously jokes as the angels time stroke his precious pavement. Well, the interstate's choked with nomadic hordes and Volkswagen vans with full running boys dragging great anchors, following dead-end signs into the source. The angel rides by humping his hunk metal whore. Madison Avenue's claim to fame, in a train of brown with eyes like rain, she rubs against the weather-beaten frame and asks the angel for his name. Off in the distance, the marble dome reflects across the flatlands with a naked field off into parts unknown. The woman strokes his polished chrome and lies beside the angel's bone.
Wow. It's another track with very expressive and visual lyrics that I'm not quite sure what to do with. I mean, at the very start, I thought it was going to be a more narrow story, and it sounded like we were talking about a young person, and then he made reference to baseball cards and spokes, which, if you don't know what that is, and I imagine most of you watching this will be familiar. But yeah, here in the US, like in the 80s, and I think before that, like the 70s, well, obviously before that, but yes, like going back to the mid 20th century, it was like a thing to put baseball cards in the spokes of your bicycle, and as you rode your bike, it would make this like slapping sound, and it, like, it was sort of cool to have that on your bike, and it was a bit of like simple distinction. But I do then notice that like it seemed to like keep shifting in terms of the visual or the vignette that it was talking about. And so then I'm thinking, oh, like maybe it's kind of like the bus to 83rd Street song, where it's like, we're just seeing little snapshots of life. But then he's like talking about Madison Avenue. It's like, wait, so are we in New York again, or like are we still in Asbury, New Jersey, or somewhere in New Jersey? But I was thinking maybe it was more New York City. But then he's talking about like, fields, often parts unknown. It feels like we kept like zooming out, and there was, a lot happening here. And Angel's like, what was like like the woman's like stroking his chrome, which like, it made me laugh. Like chrome dome is a way to talk to someone or to refer to someone in a comedically insulting way who has a bald head. But chrome is on like cars, and it's like a type of metal and like sheen that it relates to artifacts or objects that people have. And then there were like, what was it, she's lying next to Angel's bones, which like, okay, angels you don't think of as having like bones as in remains, but of course if it is a human angel, that could be something. So yeah, there's like a lot going on like visually and by association, but I don't really know if there's like a central narrative to it, or if it is again just kind of snapshots in people's lives. And maybe all these people thinking about an angel in their life, or maybe praying to angels, or hoping that an angel to them is in some way inspiring them or motivating them or making them feel emotion. So yeah, lyrically I don't quite know what's happening, but again, like all the songs on this album, it's like he's this word poet, but he's like a lot of poems, it feels like, the meaning could be taken different ways, and there's imagery, but it doesn't necessarily give you a sense of what the story is. So yeah, his verbal poetry in the songwriting on this album has been both impressive and really interesting to try to follow. And usually I feel like I'm picking up the pieces, and I don't really know what's happening. But either way, I enjoy his very like emotional and tender, but almost like a little broken vocal delivery. It was like he was feeling the weight of all these stories and the emotions that he's referencing. So yeah, there were a couple moments where his voice kind of trailed off, and like it just felt like he was feeling everything that he was singing, but in a very subdued and heavy kind of way. I will say also the minimalist arrangement, at first it was just that piano, and it was like a very simple line, just kind of back and forth and back and forth, but that gave it a very, again, like simple and tender sound. Eventually I do think there's like a cello, like a bowed instrument that comes in, but still, overall, there's no like jamming guitar, there's no like flute, there's no saxophone. It was a relatively stripped down song, but that felt like it worked because it had me focusing on what he was talking about, even if I don't quite know what that is. So yeah, a really interesting one from Bruce. Thank you again to Michaela for all of the Bruce material, and I'll just keep saying it, we are seriously like at the base of this gargantuan mountain, and we've only just begun the first few steps of the very bottom rung of this journey that we're on. So hopefully you're here for it. Let me know what you think of this one. I will see you next time. Peace.